Hello and a very good morning. My name is Don Arleth and you're watching World News coming to you live from Warsaw. We start off this morning in Belgium, where 3 drones were spotted over the Doel nuclear power plant on Sunday evening. According to a spokesperson for the energy company envoy, operations of the plant were not impacted by the sightings. The incident near the plant in Antwerp follows several similar reports of unidentified UAVs flying very close to Belgian infrastructure in recent days. On November 2nd, drones took off near the Klein Brogel military base. 2 days later, drones were spotted over Brussels airport, causing operations there to be suspended, as well as over Liège airport and near the Klein Brogel, Florence, and Schaffen military air bases. According to the Belgian Defense Minister, Theo Franken, the sightings near military bases appear to be part of an espionage operation and have links to recent Russian airspace violations in Europe. In the battle against disinformation, Ukraine has issued new sanctions against Russian institutions and individuals responsible for fueling the false narrative of the Kremlin's war. From state officials and propagandists to publishing houses, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy announced the new sanctions in a social media post.
Today's Ukrainian sanctions decision includes individuals working in Putin's government structures and those involved in the looting of temporarily occupied Ukrainian territories, one of his bagmen, a Russian military intelligence functionary, and one collaborator. We are also launching action against Russian publishing houses engaged in justifying aggression and spreading Russian propaganda worldwide. Everything in Russia that is oriented towards war must be blocked.
On Sunday, U.S. President Donald Trump selected a new special envoy to Minsk. John Cole, who previously helped negotiate the release of prisoners in Belarus, is expected to press the Lukashenko regime to free even more of its political prisoners. Since January, Trump has increased U.S. engagement with Belarus and its pro-Putin authoritarian leader, Alexander Lukashenko. In September, 52 prisoners were freed in Belarus, and the U.S. president urged Lukashenko to release 1,400 more detainees. September's release was the largest since Lukashenko came to power and comes at a time when the authoritarian leader is seeking closer relations with Washington. The United States closed its embassy in Minsk in February of 2022 after Vladimir Putin used Belarus as a launch pad to send tens of thousands of troops into neighboring Ukraine. Trump's decision to give Hungary a one-year exemption from Russian energy sanctions is not helpful for Ukraine, but surely does help Moscow to continue its war efforts, said John Sweet, a retired military intelligence officer and co-founder of Intrep 360, in an interview with TVP World.
He certainly does, but he also panders to the president. He tells the president what he wants to hear, and the president responds to that. I think the decision to give him a one-year exemption is not helpful, at least for Ukraine, because it continues to put money into the Russian coffers in order for them to continue the war. So from that perspective, it doesn't help. But again, the president is trying to come to some sort of resolution. And he thinks maybe that the best course of action would be to try Orban. And Orban obviously is an apologist for Russia. He likes the cheap energy. He's going to lobby for Russia. Now, I don't believe the majority of European allies feel the same way towards him as President Trump does, but nonetheless, that was the outcome of the meeting 2 days ago there in Washington, D.C.
A 2-day-long summit between the European Union and the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, also known as CELAC, kicked off in Santa Marta, Colombia on Sunday. Delegates there are discussing future cooperation between regions, with multilateral trade agreements, green transition, and the fight against organized crime topping the agenda.
Over the past 10 years, trade in goods between the EU and CELAC has increased by 52%, while the exchange of services has doubled. The EU's chief diplomat Kaja Kallas is hopeful that in these turbulent times for the two blocs, the discussions will bring stability.
You have to ask those people who are absent, but there's a saying, let's be grateful for those who are present.
While Kallas hopes for cooperation between the regions to be at the heart of the summit, the discussion has been overshadowed by recent American strikes against small boats in Venezuelan and Caribbean waters.
Drug trafficking is something we must all fight against, but we also have rules of international law. It is important to remember that as well.
I think it's important that there is the calm in the Caribbean. So we should try to avoid any further escalation.
While trade between the regions is quickly growing, future investments will depend on the security and stability of both.
Over 50 people were injured in Slovakia after two trains collided on Sunday. It's the second such accident of this type in the past month. The crash took place near the Slovakian capital Bratislava on Sunday. One train hit the back of another, injuring dozens of passengers. Over a dozen people were taken to the hospital. According to the Slovakian Interior Minister, around 800 people were traveling on trains at the time of the collision. It's the second rail accident in Slovakia in the past month, after a collision of two trains took place in the eastern part of the country on October 13th. 91 people were injured in that crash. A minute of silence, wreath-laying, and a salute. Britain's King Charles, Prince William, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer paid tribute to fallen Polish heroes from the iconic 303rd Squadron. Of nearly 3,000 pilots who flew in the Battle of Britain, Poles were the largest group of foreign nationals supporting the British Air Force in what has been called one of the turning points of World War II.
These were the solemn scenes at today's Remembrance Sunday memorial event in the United Kingdom. The commemorations, held every year on the Sunday closest to November 11, also marks 80 years since the end of World War II and pays tribute to those who lost their lives in both world wars and later conflicts, and the courage of those who fought shoulder to shoulder with Britain's forces. Here in Poland, that legacy runs deep. At the RAF Liberator Memorial Stone in Warsaw, British Ambassador Melinda Simmons joined Polish officials to pay tribute to the Allied forces who died helping the 1944 Warsaw Uprising.
It is about remembrance, so everybody wears one in the week up to Remembrance Day, which is on this day. And Remembrance Day is about remembering it was initially established for First World War, but has recently come to mean remembrance for all people who have died in violent conflict. And so it's got very universal meaning that way. But the other meaning it has is future-looking, and it's a symbol of peace.
The ambassador says the spirit of remembrance also reflects the close bonds between the United Kingdom and Poland and their continued unity in standing up for freedom in Europe.
We still work as closely as we ever did. Those relationships are as close as they ever were, and we all want and are working for the same thing, which is for Ukrainian people and for European people to live in peace.
Among those remembered, the legendary Polish 303rd Squadron, the highest-scoring fighter unit of the Battle of Britain, whose bravery helped turn the tide of the war. Speaking to TVP World, historian Alina Nowobilska says their story still captures the imagination of future generations.
People remember there were more than just British pilots. These pilots went through incredible difficulties to try and even get to England, let alone fly planes in the Battle of Britain, because that's what they partook in. They partook in the Battle of Britain. It was a very hard and a very difficult fight for them. Many pilots were lost. Many pilots were even lost during testing.
Their bravery and optimism, she says, still serves as a source of inspiration.
They were pushed out of Poland in 1939. They had to escape, because either that or they'll end up in a prisoner of war camp. I mean, you can see in Ukraine all the brave soldiers coming out of there as well. And it's something that the 303 Squadron were just steadfast.
A day of solemn reflection and enduring gratitude for those who fought for the freedom that Europe continues to defend today. For TVP World, I'm Diana Skaya.
Despite Despite the strength of the Polish economy, the country's healthcare system could be at a breaking point if funding isn't aggressively ramped up. Reports are circulating of denied coverage and a €3 billion shortfall this year alone, with the government forced to step in to close the gap.
Poland is not the only country where patients complain about long waiting times and insufficient quality of treatment.
Well, that's a bit sick.
This is a mess, isn't it?
There is a general problem with treatment, with getting to see a specialist, and above all, with getting tested.
Financed mostly through mandatory contributions, the Polish health insurance system called the National Health Fund has now faced a formidable financial challenge, as a result of which some patients have been denied medical services.
In some facilities, doctors received unofficial or official information that they should not add new oncology patients to these drug programs.
One can only imagine the implications this backlog may bring, also for other patients who had their planned surgeries for less serious conditions postponed or cancelled.
If an inguinal hernia is not operated on in a timely manner, it can lead to very serious complications, peritonitis and even sepsis or death.
In response to the public uproar, the ministry dismissed claims about cancer patients being denied treatment.
We do not confirm reports of postponing oncological treatments or sending away oncology patients. As a rule, oncological services are unlimited.
Amid the crisis, Poland's finance minister Andrzej Domański met with health minister Jolanta Sobierańska-Grenda to seek ways to boost funds for medical services. As a result, the finance ministry earmarked nearly €1 billion in an attempt to seal the gaping hole in the healthcare budget.
For now, the talks concerned additional measures and an extra amount of €830 million. The aim is to release the amount so that, together with the funds that had been transferred earlier, it would ensure the financing of medical services in 2025.
The whole situation has fueled criticism from the opposition, including some from the right-wing Law and Justice's power broker Jarosław Kaczyński.
They are turning patients away, cancelling procedures for people whose lives are at risk, and the National Health Fund is going bankrupt.
But is it really bankrupt? The Polish healthcare system is heavily underfinanced, needing an extra injection of money every year. Despite a precipitous annual GDP growth, Poland's health-related expenditures are among the lowest across Europe. But this situation is not new, experts say.
It's a neglect that has been happening for years.
But what should Poland do to give its healthcare system a new lease of life? Experts indicate the solution lies in investing more in the system and tapping into the digital opportunities that today's world offers.
A lack of investment can be easily solved with the amount of the data we possess today, with predictive analytics we have opportunity to run today, and more importantly, thanks to digital technologies that we can equip patients.
The government is likely to manage to close this year's shortfall of more than €3 billion. But next year will be even more of a challenge, given estimates saying that the gap in 2026 will amount to more than €5 billion. For TVP World, I'm Piotr Miszczuk.
And across the Atlantic, the end to the longest government shutdown in U.S. history is finally in sight. The United States Senate has advanced a compromise bill which ensures government funding through January 30th. The funding bill passed the Senate on Sunday with the minimum required majority of 60 votes. It prohibits layoffs in federal agencies until January 30th and ensures back pay for all those federal employees who have not received paychecks due to the shutdown. The agreement, however, leaves out the health care subsidies to help lower-income Americans pay for private health insurance. The disagreement between the Democrats and Republicans over these subsidies was at the center of the now 41-day-long government shutdown. The Republicans, however, have maintained that they are open to return to the issue later. In order for the government to reopen, the proposed funding bill now has to pass the House of Representatives and be signed by the U.S. President. And that concludes this edition of World News, but do stay tuned because World Talks is coming up next.